Thursday. Flying out to Charlotte on Monday.
All right, gang's all here. Let's start with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Happy Fat Tuesday, everybody. And that means for you. That's right. Let's start off with our for an approval of our minutes from last meeting.
I'll move them. Second.
Any discussion or changes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 1. That's over to you, Nicole. Oh, Sarah, I'm sorry.
I had mentioned at our last meeting that as part of Governor Cuomo's executive budget, he had put in $15 million to support unmet senior needs. And he just wanted to have a resolution from the county supporting those funds. It's based on, the money is based on actual data, waitlist information that we provide to the states. Most of our waitlist data is for senior home care, and where it's not just, it's a number of things that why people are on the wait list. The number one is a lack of funds, but there's also a lack of aides in the county, and there's difficulty serving remote areas in the county as well. So it's not just funding, but the state, this is the first big push for the state to recognize those unmet needs in the senior home care arena, and I just would like the support of the legislature for this. The Association on Aging in New York is supporting it. Other counties are also putting resolutions before their boards and their legislative body to support this as well, because you never know where money is. You know, it's part of his executive budget, and it can be pulled at any time. With the data that we have supplied to the state, it would be approximately $50,000 that would come in to meet those needs, and there's no matching funds required, so it would be $50,000 that could go towards getting an aid in the home of seniors. We have about 35 seniors that are on our wait list at this time.
Look for a motion, discuss.
Move to discuss.
Any second?
Second.
Any discussion, any worries?
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Maybe Phil, you can answer this for me. Typically, when we send these to our state electeds, do we just keep them in? Do we just keep the electeds that have jurisdiction over Oswego County? Because if I'm right, Sarah, isn't Senator Rachel May the new chair of the Aging Committee at the state Senate? I think so. And so she's a neighbor to the north. And typically, have we ever?
Yeah, well, when it's deemed appropriate, we can send it to committee chairs, or I don't know if it'd be appropriate for that chair or for the state's Ways and Means. Whoever's acting on the budget, this could also go to.
All right. Well, why don't I then make sure that she's chairing aging, and then I'll bring it back to the full floor if I want to make an amendment on the floor for that. Would that be okay?
You could have asked for an amendment just to say to the committee chair of state.
Okay, I'll make that motion then.
Should we also send it to the Assembly Aging Committee as well, even if we're not from Central New York?
Agreed?
Yeah.
So amend your motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to amend, to send it to the jurisdictional committee at the state level, whoever that chairman be or whoever that council be.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Oh, no, well, let's just vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any discussion of the resolution with the amendment? All those in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the resolution that authorizing chairman to enter the agreement with Oswego County Opportunities Conroy Program. This is something that we've been doing the last couple of years, right? So, kind of a repeat, Bill? Do you want to discuss?
Sure. Yes, this is, the Office for the Aging supplies some funding towards the Call and Ride program. We certainly do not completely fund the program because it is more costly than $20,000. But with this funding that we do put towards the program, seniors in the county, those age 60 and older, are able to utilize Call and Ride at no cost to them, contribution only. It's not every day of the week. It's not, in some areas,
Yeah,
it's
there's a
twice a
schedule
month.
on the last page.
Right.
It's like 10 to 2, 5 days a week, but each day is in a different area of the county.
Right. So it doesn't completely meet the needs of all transportation here in the county, but it does give seniors some transportation option. And it doesn't have to be just doctor appointments. It can be social engagements. It can need to go get their groceries. It can go get their hair done. And I've been reassured by Gary Mashaw, OCO Transportation, that this will remain, the schedule that is right now will remain through 2019. Because there has been some talk and possibly scaling back the routes and the transportation itself. If it does get scaled back, then we'll bring it back to the table. But I will say, I know that $20,000 are still running in a deficit with that program. So, and they do have the match. This again is we receive funding from the state for this. There's a 25% match, and OCO provides that match, so there's no funds from the county for this program.
Can I have a motion first before we discuss?
I'll make a motion.
Any second? Second by Nate. I've got Margaret first.
Thank you, sir. Will this Call and Ride be able to go to Redfield? Or not yet?
It goes where, in the school district, so.
Yes, that would be in that district. Yep. St. Creek, Boston, Redfield, Orwell, part of Williamstown.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it does, it goes, they do have it divided up by school district, so if it's in that district, then
It would
it
be
should be
Sandy
accessible to
Creek
them.
district.
Now, if there is an, OPT bus route, and say then,
Not all the way to Redfield.
yeah,
And
so,
or Boylston, either one.
so they should be, but I will tell you in Redfield though, it's probably one day every other week.
Well, that would be helpful
Yeah.
for what they got, yes.
Okay, so even though the schedule says it's, oh yeah, okay, it's the first and third Monday.
Right,
Okay, I see. The schedule is on the last page of the.
Yeah, it said school district, so I wanted to
By-
make sure, because that's so far away, because in some cases, it's real close to, going to, Williamstown, and that's an APW,
right.
but Redfield also has Williamstown addresses too, Redfield.
If there is anybody that has a problem getting a bus, just reach out to us so that we can find out what the issue may be, so that we can work with transportation.
Sarah, in the contract, it says that there's monthly reporting. Does that go to you?
Yes.
And then there's also a full annual report.
We do, yes, we go and do a monitoring of their, of the operations each year.
Would that be something that we eventually see here?
We can certainly bring it, yeah, I can certainly present it to you.
I mean, just to be interested now because of we've just started the new Transportation Advisory Committee
Mhm.
and the Transportation Work Group on the Poverty Reduction Collaborative.
Right.
That would be interesting to see the usage data for as much as we have for a couple of years.
I will tell you, on average, there's 326 trips that seniors are provided. That's just the senior population, age 60 and older. There's more riders than that, and that's per month. Not for all the areas. There's probably one in the APW area per month, 1 to 2 riders. In the Pulaski area, I believe it's 7 to 10. And then, of course, you get into the Oswego and Fulton, because it's 2 days per week, your ridership jumps up there. But I do have those numbers as well. I can bring them at the next, to the next.
Or you
meeting
just
for that.
share them via email.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next, resolution is to reappoint 2 members and appointing 1 new member to the Community Service Board.
Yes, the Oswego County Community Services Board members are nominated by the legislature to serve on that board for a term of 4 years. We have 2 members who have been serving and are up for reappointment, Greg Ascetic and Brian Coleman. And we have recruited 1 new member, Angela Christmas-Madison. She is a school social worker. She has 20 years' experience with providing mental health and substance abuse services. And so she would be is interested in joining the board as soon as she can be appointed.
Look for a motion to accept this list. Second,
Second.
any discussion?
How many people are on this board?
We're supposed to have 15. Believe Angela will make 10, so we have a few vacant positions. We're constantly recruiting for positions. So I don't think in my 13 years here, we have ever had 15. We've gotten close, but then we lose a couple and
Volunteers, Rich?
I would just note the board is mandated by state law. It's
Yeah.
required.
But are they, who do they report to? Do they report to you, or do they, I mean, what happens with their minutes, when they meet?
well, we retain all at the mental hygiene division.
Yeah.
We prepare and have them approve the minutes and retain them, and they get shared with the clerk's office.
Okay.
The board meetings are public meetings.
Do they meet monthly?
No, I mean, it's about 4 times a year and as needed.
And you have subcommittees as well.
Yes, the state law requires subcommittees for the 3 disciplines, mental health, substance abuse, and developmental disabilities. They are all given the crossover of issues. They all meet as one integrated subcommittee. We have 3 different subcommittee rosters, but we meet as one large group for about a 3-hour meeting. Many of our providers provide services in more than one of those systems, so it was a little bit redundant to have them come to totally separate meetings when at least 50% of the agendas were common items for each subcommittee.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of the list?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, HS4, resolution authorizing budget mod to accept New York State Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse state aid.
This is new funding for Oswego County, the New York State Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services. The funding is an award resulting from advocacy efforts from the New York State Conference of Local Mental Hygiene Directors and the Sheriff's Association to have the state assist with funding services within jails to address substance abuse issues and disorders. So this was approved in last year's budget, and they've just finished figuring out how much they were allocating to what county. So what this $60,000 that Oswego County is receiving this year is actually out of last year's state budget. And it is proposed again, at least at level funding, in the proposed state budget for 1920. So this is OASIS pass-through money to go to Farnham Family Services to work with the Sheriff's Department to provide services on site in the jail. The plan that locally that we have worked with Farnham and the Sheriff's Department on is to partnering with some other funding that Farnham has available through a SAMHSA grant that they received, to that funding to purchase a kiosk, a mobile computer kiosk to provide them the capacity to do telehealth, so that remotely from Farnham's office, they can provide substance abuse assessments and recommendations to the jail and the medical team at the jail. They will be using this $60,000 to cover staffing expenses to provide that service. So it's a very entry-level effort to begin to develop substance abuse services in the jail. $60,000 is not a lot of money,
we're hoping that that amount will continue to grow. And Farnham is also invested in, as well as the sheriff, in pursuing other funding opportunities.
Affirmative motion? Motion first.
motion discussed.
Second?
Got a motion and a second? Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Could you just explain the kiosk bit a little bit more? I mean, because it does sound kind of, you'd think that with, you know, drug counseling and stuff, you want one-on-one, but how's the kiosk work?
You would want it's one-on-one, but I think, you know, maybe as many members of the committee are aware, there are other issues involved with providing that service from jail. One is space and one is corrections officer supervision. So anytime that they're moving, bringing outside providers in and bringing the inmates to them, it requires some additional officer time. So, those are, the idea is to go with this route now and be able to move on some of those other issues and do more in-person services. But the kiosk is, I guess probably to oversimplify it, is, you know, if you've ever done Skype, it's using the internet to secure network to be able to connect to people via, say, video conferencing. So the inmate would be there with, say, the medical suite, with staff there, and Farnham staff would be in their office.
Thank you.
One of the things that is on the table is I did ask Farnham if they're purchasing this equipment, you know, if they would be open to have that used by other providers to provide other types of services. So I think it's an issue of making sure the security of the functionality of it all, but they're certainly willing to do that for such things as maybe can be used for 730 competency exams or other sorts of specialty type services that might decrease the amount of time or the frequency that the sheriff's department actually have to transport people outside of the facility for examinations.
Has this money always been allocated as pass-through money? This has never been direct to provider money, it's just come through you guys and then to Farnham?
Yes.
That's how I understand it.
This specific money is new
Right.
money, but all of the money coming from Oasis is.
Always goes through you, and then you guys pay provider. Okay, thank you.
Legislator Stahl?
So, this kiosk is, again, it's not being purchased with this money. This money is going to pay for Farnham staff to do the work. The kiosk is going to be located in the jail, is that correct?
Yes,
And your point you just said was that they might be able to utilize that for other than Farnham use.
correct.
Because I know there's been some discussion about having that telecommunication available, like you
Yes.
said, so that I think that would be amazing. And you had conversations with the sheriff,
Yes.
I assume? That's exciting.
Great, legislator, no, for five.
I'm on the board of directors of Farnham, so I won't be obtaining this.
Any other questions? Okay, look for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
One abstention. Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see, HS 5, resolution authorizing professional services contractual amendment to increase transportation services contract.
This one is kind of twofold. So if you have an existing contract with Catholic Charities to provide mental health transportation services that we fund with OMH state aid. They've been doing that for a few years. They were awarded that contract after an RFP process. There is, what I'm asking for from the committee is approval to increase the dollar amount in that contract for two reasons. One, to increase capacity of the mental health transportation services and to correspond with the next agenda item around the addition of school-based mental health satellite clinics in other areas of the county to support those families, transportation needs for those families to be able to get to prescriber services and appointments. So for that reason, I'm asking for to be able to use OMH state aid to be able to increase the contract. The other piece is to be able to increase the contract so that they can provide a pilot transportation service for up to 2 years. Excuse me, that would provide transportation services for individuals participating in the newly developed opioid court. That is a daily court appearance in front of the judge and a daily treatment appointment at Farnham Services. So while getting to Farnham is a medical appointment that people could utilize Medicaid transportation for, arriving to court and then getting from court to Farnham poses significant transportation barriers for people to being able to participate in the opioid court. They've already had a couple of people who were eligible but did not have transportation, so they're actually not able to be able to participate in that. So the funding used for this is what's called Medicaid admin allocation funding, which we have received as a result of a claim that we put in for staff time, mental hygiene staff time spent developing services, Medicaid services for the community and assisting people to access, become Medicaid enrolled or access Medicaid billable services. There were a number of years where they were backlogged in processing those claims. And so we received a large amount of money last year, which we have 2 years to spend. It's not going to be an ongoing amount of money that I can count on, particularly since the number of staff in the division has decreased in the last couple of years. So when I worked with the opioid court and Farnham and Catholic Charities around this, I made it very clear that this is not something we can continue to fund, that other sources of revenue to support this would have to be identified, because the money that I have is not going to be sustainable for this. So this is up to 2 years to be able to fund the opioid up to a max, opioid transportation up to a max of $57,500. And that will be, it may or may not reach that max depending on the number of people who are actually enrolled in the opioid court. And of those people, how many people actually are going to need the assistance with transportation. So at the end of this, hopefully we'll have a much better idea around what the true need for an ongoing level of funding would be.
I'll look for a motion.
I'll move it.
Wait a second. Questions? So what portion of it do you think will be ongoing? I mean, some of this money, as all of this whole thing is just going in the last 2 years, that's it?
No, on the informational memo, the budget item number 2 in regards to opioid court, the $57,500 would be for up to 2 years.
Okay.
Number 1 is money that is already in the budget, that's OMH state aid,
Okay.
and
That's,
that is ongoing funding source.
so will there be an additional RFP for this transportation service? How are you gonna?
According to Onondaga County Purchasing, when I checked with them, it was not gonna require an additional RFP, but it was gonna require committee approval to increase the contract.
Okay, so, but this will provide for a driver and a dispatcher and coordination services. Where is that gonna be housed? How is that gonna work?
That's all, that's how, it'll be housed at Catholic Charities with
Oh,
their
okay.
existing
So-
transportation.
With,
Program.
okay, so they already have dispatch for some services as well? Okay,
This is an increase and expansion of what they're already providing.
any other questions?
I just wanna make sure I understand it right, so we're gonna take a look at this after a 1-year period or 2-year period to see if we come to that 57.5 threshold that we're allocating for the opioid court.
Well, how the dollars are being spent are gonna be looked at on a monthly basis.
Okay.
But after a year, we're going to be looking at what is it that we really need on a continual basis for opioid court. And then pursuing the opioid responsibility of the opioid court program to pursue our We're also looking at some mini grant opportunities through a regional coalition that would purchase bus bus passes, bus tokens, so for people who have availability to central building. There's another option for transportation.
Okay. Thanks.
Other questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and HS6 is the resolution awarding the professional services contract for the school-based mental health clinic services implementation.
Okay, so this has been a project in the works for a few years. Going back as far as July of 2017, I came to the committee around a current contract related to school-based satellite mental health clinics. The history with this is that in 2012, we started these types of services, and with an RFP in 2012. The structure at that time was to provide ongoing deficit funding and safety net support for a provider to be in the schools and to open 5.5 is what we ended up with, five full-time, 1.5 time clinician sites in the school buildings to provide billable clinical services to school students. That was awarded to Oswego Hospital. The contract was renewed annually. In 2017, I was seeking permission to have a waiver for the 5-year RFP protocol because of the nature of the clinical services. The committee at that time allowed for a 1-year extension, an additional year's renewal, with the expectation that a report around outcomes and demonstration that provider that we were working with was the best provider that we should have providing those services. So during that time, I worked with Oswego Hospital. However, they were unable to produce the actual student outcome data that the committee had requested to see. So we're working in the direction of putting out a new RFP after that, and with the same RFP structure required an in-county psychiatrist as the RFP was written. None of the other clinic providers had at that time an in-county psychiatrist or prescriber of services. So anybody they were serving in the schools would have to travel out of county to get those services. So it went to discussion with purchasing, and Oswego Hospital was identified as a sole source at that time, which resulted in another 1-year extension. But given the fact that we had concerns around their inability to produce reports of student outcomes, we took a step back and took a look at how we were funding this, and what we proposed, and that brought that here to this committee. I believe that was July of 2018. Proposed a structure where we would be using the same funding to implement a startup process to be able to stand up additional clinics in school buildings using this funding to offer 12-month implementation funding for clinics to be able to establish additional sites that would be financially self-sufficient and sustainable after a 12-month period of time, so that they would be covering their expenses by billable units of service for the clinical services they were providing, or were obtaining some other partnership or funding agreement, whether it be with the school or any other funding source, to help meet their financial needs. But this money would be for a 12-month period of time for a given site only. And then we would fund new sites in year 2, and then new sites in year 3, with the goal of having a satellite mental health clinic at every school building in the county by the end of 5 years. So we put out, there's a history. So we put out the
No, that's good. Thank you.
RFP this fall. Obviously, we also last summer notified Oswego Hospital, that the structure of their existing contract was gonna end, as of June of 2019. So they are aware of that, when we're also given the opportunity to respond to this RFP. The Onondaga Purchasing directly sent the RFP to the 3 OMH licensed clinic providers that we have present in Oswego County. And we received 2 responses, 2 proposals back, one from Arise Child and Family and one from Liberty Resources. Oswego Hospital did not respond to the RFP. It is my understanding that they are going to continue to operate the sites that they have, some of which I believe are continue to be supported by Fulton School District. And think that they have a lot on their plate right now with the development of their new behavioral health center. And I think that's taking the majority of their focus as far as opening new sites and developing new services. So my recommendation is to fund both Arise and Liberty. The RFP was written so that we would choose up to 3 eligible providers to partner with, so that we could work on developing as many sites as quickly as possible, and not having to relying on just one provider to do that would definitely slow down the development of those 2 sites. Arise and Liberty both submitted very comprehensive proposals, and although both agencies have a significant amount of experience in providing school-based satellite clinic services in Onondaga County. Arise also has existing sites in 3 buildings in Central Square School District. So they're both experienced in this service and standing up these sites within the culture of school settings. The dollar amount that I am asking for is to fund each full-time satellite site for 12 months of implementation funding, up to a maximum of $30,000 per full-time clinician site, and to do a maximum of 3 sites per provider per year, which gives you the dollar amount of $90,000 a year per provider. This dollar amount is a little bit more than what were in the proposals for that both Liberty and Arise submitted. However, their budgets did not include office furnishings, and since I have the money available for this project, I didn't want to pass that expense off to the school districts to have to furnish the satellite clinics within their building. Also, I'm a little concerned that they have not fully anticipated some of the challenges that they will have to stand up these sites as quickly and develop a caseload as quickly as they have in some of the Syracuse area or Syracuse suburban school districts. I'm thinking that there could be some more challenges in regards to recruitment in some of the locations of our school buildings. And developing some of the schools, although all have expressed an interest in having the service, they're not all as well resourced as say some of the Syracuse City Schools or the Baldwin Schools and the Liverpools and the North Syracuse School District to be able to dedicate staff to really implementing this on the school side. So I did not want to fund this. I wanted to fund this at a level that it would succeed. It's for 12 months, and if I can't pull it off by then there's no additional funding for this project for year 2 of a particular site. So I'm hoping that they will not need the full $30,000 per site, but I didn't want to underfund it.
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion, you got a second?
I'll second.
Questions, Tim?
Go to Dan first.
Pardon me?
Go to Dan first. Did you?
I'm gonna second, but he beat me, so.
Oh, okay.
I have a couple questions. First of all, Nicole, thank you so much for that, the background. I think it's very valuable. I know a number of us have been in this committee for a little bit, have walked through this, and it seems like there's a lot of time and thought put into this, and I know that, we talked about it in 17, it's a program that is necessary. And one of the biggest concerns about just not doing the 5-year bid again was because of how urgent it was to maintain that consistency. One of the concerns that I have a little bit is, I haven't heard exactly which, have you decided which of the 6 new sites, the targeted sites for next year?
Mhm.
Are they the same 6 at 5.5 that we currently have, or are they all completely new? Is there overlap?
The sites that Oswego Hospital operates now are remaining with Oswego Hospital. So those are not transferring to a different provider. The sites for this project are all new sites. They are all different school districts than where Oswego Hospital is.
My concern with that is that we have been, from this, let me start off, do you know how much funding we've been putting, we're gonna look at 180 this year, do you know what the funding was in the previous year, the Oswego Hospital's contract has been?
$246,000 a year.
A year. So $250,000 have been going to Oswego Health that they're not going to be get, is that correct, after this contract expires? So I understand the hope that they will continue those 6 locations, 5.5, but my concern would be that a couple years ago, we talked about how essential it was to keep these sites running. So essential that we couldn't go out to bid, it's gotta keep going. But now we're talking about, and again, I understand it's not our fault that they didn't bid on it, but if they've been compensated $250,000 to run those, and we're essentially no longer gonna be providing that $250,000, are you at all concerned that those sites will not be able to continue? And if so, we are then, by moving on to 6 new sites, essentially just saying these 6 sites that we thought were the most important sites throughout our county 7 years ago are now not gonna have this service.
I am somewhat concerned that the hospital may not, a few years down the road, might not be able to sustain them if they do not change their operating practices that they've been doing for the past 5 years. However, they have already started to change those operating practices and increasing their productivity in those buildings to move in the direction of being able to be self-sufficient. The $246,000 provided them with a safety net. And in having some conversations with some of the senior leadership team at Oswego Hospital over the past year, some of the transition in the leadership at the behavioral health division has led to a different interpretation of what these dollars were supposed to be for. So I think instead of producing, it was not supposed to offset low billable units of service. It was to cover unbillable time so that they could enhance with the services beyond the clinical services to do more with it with school personnel, and to be able to serve uninsured children.
Sure.
Over the past 1.5 to 2 years, and looking a lot more closely at it, that's not what was happening. They were just simply offsetting their, what they weren't earning in billable units.
Sure.
Those services, those units are there to be able to bill for, if they are overseeing staff to be able to be productive and a little more assertive within the schools to communicate around, we have room for new referrals. In the research around this project, other counties have these programs in lots of school buildings. They do not provide any ongoing funding, let alone the funding at the level that we were funding. So I know it's been demonstrated that providers can be successful in doing this without any ongoing deficit funding.
And I think I completely agree with the change of the focus on how we're spending money. Completely agree. My just biggest concern is, would it make more sense to, instead of coming up with 6 new locations, which very well could need it, and actually, I would hope to see this in every single school. But we have these other existing sites that I'm worried we're going to be without these services. Would it make more sense to instead, once Oswego Health's contract is expired, they're no longer under contract, to then use these sites that are actually used to doing this already and maybe start there with this year, and then, it sets us back 1 year, I get that, but then we know at least that these 6 sites or 5.5 sites that we designated as some of the neediest in our whole county are going to be served continuously. And also to start this thing fresh, like you said, this is it's new to a lot of these schools. Maybe starting someplace that already at least has a feel for it wouldn't be a terrible way to start the program. Just 2 years from now, or 1.5 years from now, or 6 months from now, we pulled $250,000 a year from the provider. I just know in the private world, that's hard to continue with. And if they're budgeting, or have budgeted with $250,000 a year for those, at one point, especially like you said, with everything else they have going on, do they just say, you know what? It's not responsible to our folks to continue with this. We need to back out. And now we've already contracted with these 6. We don't have money to continue with these other school districts, and now they're gone. And these schools that we think need these things don't have them. So
Lots of responses to that. Number one, the sites that Oswego Hospital is in, those sites are licensed to them. I can't take that license away from them and give it to another provider.
so it's not given by contract, it's given by,
The license is given by New York State.
Okay.
They can choose to give it up and ask somebody else to come in and take it and be a change of sponsorship for
Gotcha.
that license, which is certainly what we would do. And if that circumstance happened, then our 5-year plan would get, with additional sites, would get redirected
Sure.
to cover those sites so that that service was maintained in those buildings. It would just be with a different provider.
Sure.
But the site itself, the license is issued to Oswego Hospital, and not to the county to say, to distribute to whoever they want to give it to.
okay.
The hospital would have to give that up.
And if they were to look to do that, how quickly could we turn it around? I mean, would it be weeks? Would it be months? Would it be semesters? I mean, you know, in your experience, is that something
It
that's
would probably
quickly?
be a couple of months.
And would funding for that be able to be drawn from the next year, or would we need to find a way to do it in-house or within budget? If that were to happen.
Would be, it would not cost there would be some cost for a new provider to go in there, but it's already an established caseload.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's already established process with the school. So the startup cost would be much less, and sure would find a way to work that within budget. We're not, the $90,000 per provider a year is not, so that's at 180, and still not at the funding level.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions?
Thanks for all this. I guess my only question is particularly in kind of our history of doing this program. I mean, we've known how long Oswego Health has done it. Is there any concerns from your end about going with 2 providers? I don't know if the right word's programming or treatment, but making sure our programming is succinct. These two vendors aren't going to be utilizing two different programming methods or 2 different treatment methods, right? We're going to award these contracts. They're going to be on the same page, and that will be succinct in each of these 6 schools that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, they'll be both operating under the same clinic regulations.
Okay.
In that structure. And the allocation strategy for school sites going forward is a little bit of a wrestling match, but we started with what the superintendents identified as their priority sites. And then we looked at what the providers, Arise and Liberty, had said in their proposals they can do. Liberty is proposing to do 3 every year. Arise is a little bit of a slower build. They're 1 in year 1, 2 sites in year 2, and then 3. So some of that dictated which districts we were in. Committed to having one district having only 1 provider. So a student, as they move and progress from building to building, would have the same clinic provider, would not have to be disenrolled and re-referred to new provider, would have that continuity. And then they build in that sort of backup support to themselves and within that district across the different buildings as clinicians.
No, I appreciate this because, like Legislator Stahl said, I know we had a lengthy conversation on this before when when we were having trouble getting reporting back from Oswego Health. So I know I can't imagine really the amount of work that's had to go into kind of, rethink this and build it back up from, something that was pretty consistent. For me, I think it's the right move. I think, we have a responsibility to the taxpayers to have some type of reporting metrics coming back from this type of stuff. So I think, and I guess my last question is, through this contract, we're feeling confident that these two vendors are going to be able to report back, on a more consistent and a more clear basis than we've seen, with our previous vendor.
And with the goal being that, of financial stability, by the end of the 12 months, that's when we'll really be monitoring on a monthly basis, their fiscal reports and their caseload reports to see that they're developing and maintaining full caseloads.
Thanks.
And then Nicole, one last quick question on this. These places, both these providers are currently providing in other schools. Have they shown that they're able to be self-sufficient in those, or self-sustaining in those other
Yes.
locations? Okay. If we have every reason to believe that they could do that. Great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
Stacy, we have a bid report.
There is a bid report in your packet. And I concur with the recommendation to choose not the lowest bid, where we weren't assured staffing of our screening and assessment of addiction issues at the front door of DSS. That is a $35,000 savings from what we're spending right now for the middle of the road, which is Farnham and Cocoa, who partnered together for this. And yet we'll receive even more with case management services. So they'll be doing the screening, the assessment, and case managing to make sure people get linked up in a very robust way with treatment, ongoing treatment.
Okay, and there's no, you said is actually less than what you had been spending?
Correct. $35,000 a year savings.
Very good.
Question.
Go ahead.
Stacy, the info memo under recommended action says the committee is requested to affirm an award to the 2 respondents.
Yeah,
There's 3 respondents listed, so which of the 2 are you recommending the award to?
it isn't 2 respondents. It's just 1 respondent with 2 vendors that partnered together for that RFP, that proposal.
So how are they grouped?
It's
Yeah,
Farnham and,
Herbalites,
it's
Farnham,
Farnham. It's Farnham.
Farnham,
And Cocoa, they're
Yeah, it's just 1. I noticed that too, Phil. It was
Is the contract actually going to Farnham, coordinating with Cocoa?
correct.
we got Harbor Lights, Farnham, and IMA.
Well, I think is it because it says company number 2 is Farnham Family Services and sub Cocoa? Is it just seeing it as
Oh, I
those
see.
2?
Company number 2, company number, so it's Farnham and the IMA group are together,
No,
No.
just Farnham?
because they're both listed as company number 2.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I don't, yeah, I don't know why that was done. I did not have a chance when I noticed it to follow up with Mr. Trombley.
So is the award to Harbor Lights and Farnham, and it's not to IMA?
No.
No.
It's just Farnham.
The ones
Just
for
Farnham.
Farnham,
Just Farnham,
with
okay.
Cocoa is a subcontract.
Just Farnham,
All right, so that's what it means by the 2 respondents.
because Farnham and Cocoa are together, yep.
So if we award, we want to award by name, not by number.
Right, to Farnham.
Correct.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll look for a motion to accept Farnham for this bid.
Make motion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Get something painted again.
Okay, that's a good idea. 1 abstention. Okay, appointment of a member to the Office of the Aging Advisory Council.
No, I'd rather.
Yes, we have a vacancy, and this is to fill the remainder of that term, so it would be just for this year. Jessica Fox from the Health Department in the Hospice Division.
I'll move it, Mr. Chairman.
Any second? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That was easy. How often does that committee meet? Quarterly?
No, at least 5 times per year, starting in March, it's every other month, March through November.
All right, reports. We are expecting Judge Eby at 3, so we might, whoever's in the middle of their report, after theirs, we'll go right to the judge if he shows up, okay? So, looks like we got DSS on top of the chart today.
I'll keep mine very brief. We are still very involved in the Poverty Collaborative, and with a real focus from DSS on transportation, providing a more robust and efficient way to collaborate and dispatch in a better way using some new software. I also want to let folks know that we're doing really well with our new attorneys. We've just completed our 2nd month of having in-house attorneys. Thanks to Phil and John Booker, I think we found a little bit of office space for them in there. So that's going to make things a little bit easier. I do want to give you a heads up that our attorneys are scrambling to keep up. We have more courtrooms with some of the shifts that are going on with the Office of Court Administration. So we're actually having to cover 4 courtrooms now. One is for mediation of permanency hearings that the Office of Court Administration has now put with court mediation services. Plus, every once in a while, we've got a 5th court if there's another support court judge there. So we're scrambling to keep up, but we do have a 4th attorney, as you recall. And this month we did fill that position by contract. Really, it's a retainer. Our county attorney helped me kind of step through all of that. And Rich, I don't know if you have anything to add.
We just thought the retainer arrangement would be more flexible time being for the department. The individual has experience as a court attorney in another county's family court system, working for the family court judge and working for, that judge was also acting supreme, and prior experiences as social services attorney, assistant county attorney. So they're pretty conversant and a good reliever, I would say.
We couldn't do without Jeff right now. And the most amazing thing is all 4 of these attorneys have some incredible heart for mission and a lot of synergy. I mean, they are just really getting along so well, and there's such good communication. So did want to give you that good news.
Are you noticing a sort of a morale shift for the caseworkers that are on the front lines of the court work?
Absolutely. They're feeling much more supported, and truly they are more supported. So even with some issues that have come up regarding our workers' safety in the field or in court, there has been a much more robust response to those pretty volatile situations. So I've been pleased as can be as the commissioner. So,
did you want to put any of your concerns about space on the table, just for future reference?
yeah, I hope it's no secret to any legislator that courthouse, family court area, that space is really not adequate for the judges or for DSS, visiting attorneys, witnesses, advocates. There's a lot of players involved with family court, and people scramble to get space. Maybe someday in the future there'll be some new build ideas going on, but maybe. Enough bake sales, Bill?
Yes, thought it was, it's important to have it out there that we're gonna be trying to do something down the road. It's not good to have, people who are going to be witnesses there with people who are gonna testify against them or something.
Yeah,
Be in the hall in the same space.
yeah. It's created some volatile situations at times.
Did you have anything else? Wow. Why did you even come out today? It's like the shortest, report and, no resolutions or anything.
I'm deferring all my time to Judge Edie.
Okay. Alrighty, let's move on then to Veterans Service Agency.
Good afternoon, everybody. On March 2nd, I was supposed to attend Syracuse University's Valor Day. The premise behind that was they were bringing in their legal team from the Dining Law School, and they were offering free legal services to veterans. They were doing bills, divorce write-ups, basically anything that veterans needed legal assistance with. You had to pre-register for it. So what had happened was I had veterans call me and they said, well, they refuse to serve us because we're in Oswego and they're only going to serve Onondaga County veterans. So I pulled out of the event after calling the event coordinator, who said, we can't service Oswego County residents. They can come down, but we can just give them references. I really hope to see that we would be able to do something like that for our Oswego County veterans. And Rich, I don't know if, there's any resources out there where we could do a free legal clinic day or, something that would pertain to our veterans, because it seems like everything that happens regarding free legal services or any free services at all are happening out of Onondaga County.
Free legal service.
Yeah, I do know that the Bar Association sponsors a free legal clinic right across the hall every Friday from 2 to 4. There's a sign-in sheet, and it's staffed by retired Judge, Supreme Court Judge Robert Nicholson, Gay Williams, and then City Court Judge Dave Roman, and maybe some others from time to time. That's every Friday, except for like holidays, the day after Thanksgiving, for example. But that's here, and the student law clinic at SU does help with matros. We do see their paperwork because we do approve the index number waivers for matros, and then there's legal services of Central New York here. It would be something to write the Bar Association president and see if they could coordinate a special day for veterans, get volunteer attorneys on top of those resources if you think it's needed. I know the clinic gets a big crowd some days.
I would definitely, want to look into that. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to talk about how we did pull out of that event because they were refusing to serve us.
The Friday clinic is first come, first served. You sign up on the spot.
Yeah, that's right. And if the legislature has a lot of questions that week, I normally sign up first.
Is it something I can Rich, is that something I can advertise, or is that something that I could refer to?
I refer people to it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think the idea of advertising it, you want to go slow just so you don't overburden it.
Right.
Most of the time, it's not too packed, but sometimes there's people
we
waiting.
get 20 people sometimes. I mean, it's designed for people who can't afford an attorney, and I've staffed it from time to time over the years just because of, people didn't show up, and some people wanted questions on their trust, and I was like, this is really not designed for somebody who has a trust. This is designed for
Okay, right. Okay, so that happened on March 12th from 10 to 13:30. I am participating in Cuba Community College's Wellness Fair. I did this last year. It was my first event. It was a really good turnout, so we're going to do that again. The City of Fulton Fire Department on March 7th at 7 p.m. is having an awards and remembrance ceremony. So that's this Thursday. The chief did ask, that I put it out there for any of the legislators that want to attend that, or for anyone that wants to attend that ceremony. And that'll be at the City Hall in Fulton. On a more serious note, I had 3 events since we've last met where I've had to call the crisis line. And what that entails is I have a veteran who comes in who's exhibiting suicidal ideations or severe depression. If I don't have to let them leave, I like to call the behavioral health clinic with them in the office. So I was able to do that for 2 veterans and just put them immediately in touch with behavioral health at the VA. I did have one veteran who didn't want anything to do with talking to anybody, but was basically trying to order a headstone prior to their own departure. They had just lost their significant other, lots of red flags. So in that event, give a call to behavioral health. Behavioral health does a home check. It's not a breach in HIPAA, it's not a breach in confidentiality. But just to bring awareness to the fact that we do have veterans in our community that are suffering from mental health and PTSD and suicidal ideation. So I think it's really important to keep raising the mental health awareness. But I've been seeing it more frequently. I don't know if it's the long winter, I don't know, but it's more so now than in the past.
Is 211 a resource that you?
It is, but I like to stay strictly within the lines of the VA. On the resource, I always give them resources, 211, or the vet center. They only service combat vets though, so you've got to kind of see who you're dealing with. But we do provide them resources, but it's been happening more recently, so. But that's all I have for veterans, if anyone has any questions.
Any questions?
Question meeting here, 3 hours.
I think
Five,
Rochelle would mention that.
Yeah, right here.
2.5.
2.5.
Well, while he's getting his coat off, Sarah, you
Okay,
want to go
sure.
ahead with your report?
Yes, our RFP went out for our registered dietitian. They had until March 1st to ask questions or comments, or I didn't receive any to my office to respond to. The RFP is open until March 15th, so we'll be coming forward to get that replacement. Hopefully there'll be some respondents. I know that with just a part-time position like this, 7 hours a week, our last time with our long-standing registered dietitian, she was the only one who responded to it. So I'm hoping it's not going to be something we have to do multiple times to try to get someone in that position. But that will be coming forward at the next meeting. We also I received a phone call from the State Office for the Aging. They're getting a work group together, reworking their compass, or the compass that we use. It's the comprehensive assessment tool, and they've asked specifically for one of my case managers to participate in that. So hope somebody will be participating in that process moving forward. I thought that was great that they reached out. She's a long-standing case manager, and I thought she'd have some good input to put towards that. Right now it's 26-page assessment to look at overhauling that and see what changes need to be made to that process. The last item really, HEAP was extended. I'm sure you maybe saw some information on the news, so we'll be helping to process HEAP applications through April 26th. But I also we just had these New York Connects cards made up instead of a business card for people. It's something that they can put on the refrigerator, knowing that New York Connects is an option. We're a resource to connect people to long-term services and supports in Oswego County or in other areas as well. We can connect people to those services. So if you need any additional ones to hand out to any constituents, feel free to let me know so that we can help get the word out on this service that we have here in the county.
Good thing to put at the town hall. All set? Are we all supposed to rise? All rise to?
Well, you know, I'm not wearing my black dress. So.
Well, we can give you the floor. There's an open chair over here if you want to join us at the
Okay.
table.
All right.
Everybody know the Honorable Judge Eby?
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for inviting me to meet with you folks today.
I'm pleased to have you.
Hardly seems possible, but it's more than 4 years that I've been on the bench now.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, amazing. Anyway, I thought it would be a good thing for me to meet with you because I know in the past, particularly this past year, you were confronted with some, I guess, some unexpected increases in funding demands because of placements. So I thought it'd be good to bring you some figures. Then I wanted to talk also about the facility up there, and then lastly about a kind of a pet issue of mine, which has to do with the pay differential between caseworkers and the probation workers. So I brought some figures here.
We have more copies on the way.
Yeah, okay, let me pass these around so that everybody can get them. I think it'd be a good starting point here. We've had some really dramatic increases in the caseload up there, particularly this past year, largely because of the drug issues in the county, particularly we've had this Molly. Molly is a particularly pernicious drug. It's an artificial drug, but what it does is it makes people essentially go crazy. And for that reason, the caseload's been particularly heavy. So on this chart, do we have enough for?
We're liking a couple.
I think a couple were.
I think we have enough at least for life.
No, Lisa's making some.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Well, let me start and just kind of explain what this is. The first page is some selective figures of counties outside of the New York City metropolitan area. So in the first column, you'll see the listing of the county. The second column is the population. And the third column is the 2018 figures for child protective proceedings. So down the highlighted column is for our county. So you'll see we have 118,000 population. 2018, we had a total of child protective proceedings of 1,108. Now, contrast that with Monroe County, for example, with a population of 747,000 people, which includes the city of Rochester, and they had total filings of 658. Okay. Onondaga County, with a population approximately 4 times of ours, had a filing of 886. Now, interestingly, the only figure higher than ours is Erie County with a population of 925,000. But there's also St. Lawrence County with a population a little less than ours, but they had actually a few more cases than us. So I wanted to bring this to your attention so that you can appreciate just how great a population we have that we're dealing with in our family court system.
So in the entire, once you get out of the metropolitan area, New York City area, this is the entire upstate. The next highest raw figure for filings is Erie County. The next highest is St. Lawrence County. And then the third highest in the entire state is us, Oswego County. Now, I want to carry you across the chart here because we pick up some other figures of juvenile delinquency, that's the JD. We have also PINS cases. And in the next to the last column, that is the actual number of children that we have in care in Oswego County. Now that's actual, those are placements. Okay. Now I want you to contrast that, for example, with Onondaga County, which has actually less child protective proceedings been filed, 886, although they do have more juvenile delinquency filings. But their placements are 816 people, children placed in care. So you can see that even though we have more filings, they have significantly higher placements. When you take a look at St. Lawrence County, which has about the same number of child protective filings as we do, they have double the children placed out of the home in care than we do. So I want you to understand from these figures just the efforts that are being taken by the Department of Social Service workers and by my court to keep children out of placement. So the fact that you did have an increase in your budget last year, I think that I want you to appreciate that we are not being excessive by any means with the placements, which really come about as a last resort to protect these children. And I think the figures here are pretty significant to the efforts of our caseworkers in keeping children out of placements, because those are the most expensive aspects of the system. We have one family I know of, for example, with 5 children, and I had to take them out and place them. Their cost alone is approaching $1 million. That's one family. So the costs are high, but we really do try to limit the number of placements. So if you have any questions or any thoughts at all.
Judge, what do you, and maybe you don't know, but what do you attribute the high percentage change over 17 to? Those two counts, 42% increase in filings and a 39% increase in PPHs and those are higher than any other counties.
Drugs.
Just strict drug.
Drugs. I'll tell you one thing. If we didn't have grandparents that were taking children in, these figures would be a lot higher. And I think that's one of the reasons in Oswego County that our figures we are able to keep them low. Every week, I just left court the last case I had. There was a grandmother taking care of custody of a grandchild who'd been removed because the mother had mental health and drug problems. Every week, there's grandparents taking children in. It's really incredible. The oldest grandparent I had was 86 years old. She took some kids. God bless.
Legislator Drum has a question.
Hi, Judge. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I think last time you were here with us, now that we're on the kind of the drug topic, I think you alluded to, well over half of your cases having some type of drug component with them. Is that line holding steady? Do you have a ballpark number about out of how many 10 cases have some type of drug involvement with them?
At least 50%, probably higher, Stacy.
Yeah.
Probably 60-70% anyway.
Yeah, because when I've had conversations with people about placements and, how we've dealt with this budgetarily over the last couple of years, the common denominator is drugs, right? I mean, what choice do we have if we have a dangerous household, particularly with a heroin epidemic in this county? And when you're talking about things like Molly and things like that, I just think it's important, as a committee, when we're having these conversations with people in the public or people that have those preconceptions about DSS and caseworkers and so on and so forth, that, the drug epidemic is such a cornerstone in the entire conversation.
Absolutely,
So, thank you.
absolutely. Yeah.
Brad?
How are these counties selected? Do they see, I mean, I know it's north of the city.
I
but
just,
how-
that was my, randomly, I've got the whole list. If you're interested, I can get it to you, but
Well, I didn't know if these might have been the worst ones or whatever. but-
No.
Oswego,
No.
okay.
no, I just, they're kind of a smattering of, I guess when my law clerk did it, she tried to pick out counties, some of the counties that were fairly close in size to Oswego to give you an idea, but,
All right, thank you.
yeah. I do not, there is one figure I do not understand, I really don't understand it, and that is Jefferson County, why their filings are so low.
Hmm.
I think it has to, I don't really understand that figure. I think it might have to do with their policy up there, that's the only thing I can figure. And it probably has something to do with the base being up there. But for it to be between St. Lawrence and Oswego County and to have such a big disparity, that figure really puzzled me.
Might be worth reaching out, find out what they're doing.
Well,
Or not.
it could, or
Or not, I think it's more what Jim said.
Legislator Five, you have a question?
Yeah, do you come across a lot of situations where you can't place children out of the home because of a lack of options?
Well, that's the option, first option is to place them with family.
Right.
Grandparents, aunts. There's an legal obligation that the department has to explore all of those possibilities before you proceed to placement. So those have to be exhausted before you even get to placement out of home.
We've been advertising heavily for foster family for like a couple of years now. So are we near where we need to be with that, or are we still low?
Well, I think, unfortunately, over the Oswego County structure for foster families really suffered. I think the department is trying to rebuild that structure now, but that's an ongoing process. We did have a pretty robust system, but it kind of fell apart, but they're in the process of rebuilding it now.
Tim?
Do we have, do you geographic based on zip codes or municipalities data for these? Do we have, is that something we have access to? Is that, I don't even hear it now, but can I
You
get?
mean about kids placed, where are they coming from?
Yeah, I'm just curious to see how many of these are the city of Oswego and the city of Fulton, and how many of them are the outskirts, which school districts are heavier. I mean, we talked about where to have, which school districts need specifically to have certain services. I'd just be curious to see these maps, and I'm sure that's something we've been looking into, but I would want to see that those things are lining up,
Just by foster care placement?
I'd like to see foster care placement, I'd like to see housing assistance, I'd like to see each of the services broken out by zip codes if possible. I mean, I think that would be enlightening,
Let me finish the annual report first.
You got it, just a thought.
Yep.
Sometimes there's issues with going all the way to zip code because of HIPAA.
Zip code? I don't think zip code's large enough, right?
Well, and zip codes cross different townships.
It gives you, you know, it's not an exact science with zip codes, but it does give you a really
Yeah.
good indication of where.
Zip code we can do easily from our databases.
I mean, I can tell you, Oswego and Fulton are gonna be high because those are our densely populated areas. But you'd be surprised, right, Judge, what's coming out of the rural areas is significant.
Yeah, it's a countywide phenomenon with the drugs, there's no question about that.
All right,
Okay, facilities. When I took office, Judge Torme came down, I don't know, he must have been through the meeting here, Phil. And he was banging the table and telling the county that we're undersized and in terms of staff or facilities, and you're gonna have to get up to par with your facilities. Now, he's kind of backed off, I haven't heard too much, but lately I've heard rumblings, so I just want to alert you, number one, we are overcrowded down there. I know that Stacy in particular has been searching for some rooms just so her lawyers can have a place to hang their hat. And by the way, I do want to commend you for going in-house. I thought that was a really good decision on your part. And you, I want to tell you, you've got 3, possibly 4, I guess, 4 really crackerjack lawyers that you've hired. They're doing a really nice job. Very nice young people, very competent, and they've really embraced it and doing you credit. Ashley Dene Fields, Taryn Perone, Allison O'Neill, and I just met your most recent there, Mr.
Jeff Tompkins.
Tompkins. Nice young people, very competent, and doing a good job for you. So thank you and congratulations on that. That was a good move. So be prepared for Torme.
thanks for the warning.
Yeah, he's gonna tell you what a great job they're doing over in Oneida County, building a $4 million facility for family court, and I don't know if it's in Rome or wherever, but he's gonna be on the warpath soon, I predict. So, good luck. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about is kind of a little, I don't want to say pet peeve, but it's a concern I have. I had worked as assistant county attorney here since 1978 until I got elected in 2014, and I was on assignment to family court. But in that period of time, I was more, I didn't have that close of an association with the caseworkers, the Department of Social Service caseworkers. But I want to tell you, since I've gotten on the bench, I've gotten to know them and see their work firsthand, and I just have such admiration for what they're doing. And they don't get the credit, they really don't. One thing that I've become aware of, Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a basic pay differential between the probation workers of about $1 an hour and the DSS caseworkers. It's the probation workers' starting pay is about $1 an hour higher. 8%. There's a reason that I think that should be addressed by you, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time, because I wasn't aware, even though I've been in the system for a long period of time, I didn't appreciate, let me put it that way, the work that the caseworkers had. So I'm going to give you some little anecdotal stories and try to explain to you why I think that's unfair and why I think you should give some consideration to addressing it. First of all, I don't want to take anything away from the probation department. They deserve everything they earn. But let me explain to you a little bit between the difference between a probation officer and a caseworker and what their duties are, and why I think the disparity is unfair. Let me start with the probation officers. First of all, if you're a probation officer, the person that you're supervising doesn't come under your supervision generally until that person has been processed through the judicial system. So typically, they will have entered a plea in criminal court and then be sent over for a probation investigation. And then if they receive a sentence of probation, they're placed on probation, they get an officer assigned. So you as a probation officer are receiving someone who's been through the judicial process, they're under sentence, they have a 3-year or a 5-year term of probation, whatever, under certain terms and conditions. Your responsibility as a probation officer is to monitor that person, make sure they're compliant. Most of them up there now have guns. There was, under the past director, there was an aggressive program to get them, a lot of them equipped with guns, so they all have guns. So let's say they go out and a probation officer is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They write up a report, submit it to the court and say, Johnny isn't doing what he says. Johnny's brought in, gets resentenced, sanctioned, whatever. That's pretty easy in the overall scope of things. Now I want to explain to you what the role, what the work is of a caseworker and what the difference is. So here's a case. This is one that I just pulled out, but this will give you kind of an idea of what the caseworkers have to deal with. So here was a case that got reported about unhygienic conditions in the home. Okay? So in this particular case, here's a report that I got. At the initial visit, mom refused to allow the caseworker into the home. Okay? So let's start there. The caseworkers go out. These people that they're investigating are not under the authority of the courts at all. So the caseworkers do not have the authority of the courts behind them at that point. Okay? So the caseworker could see garbage in the yard and walkway leading up to the home. Caseworker observed smeared dog feces on the floor right inside the door when Dad answered the door. It appeared that the pile of feces had smeared when Dad opened the door. Dad was standing in the smeared feces with no shoes or socks on. Caseworker asked about the dog feces and if it was throughout the home or just by the door. He said there were no dog feces inside the home, at which point caseworker pointed out that he was in fact standing in a pile of dog feces. He said he didn't realize that and the dog had an accident. Now, the caseworker tried to get into the house, they resisted, okay? The caseworker went back, gained access. Conditions in the house were very bad. But at that point, there's an obligation on the caseworker to try to work with the people, to ameliorate the conditions before coming to court. So you're a caseworker and you have to go into this filthy house, which by the way had about 4 or 5 dogs in it, and 8 children. Caseworker continued for a fairly short period of time trying to ameliorate the conditions, working with the people in the school system who were all concerned about these children who were coming to school smelling bad, etc. Finally, the caseworker couldn't get cooperation after a fairly short period of time and didn't let this linger too long. Came to court and the conditions were so bad, I immediately ordered removal of the children. Among other things, there was a locked door in the house, which I immediately ordered be opened. Caseworker went in there and discovered more cats and dogs in this locked room. The smell was so foul, she vomited going in there. There were cockroaches all over, and that was in fact the bedroom of these people where they've been sleeping with 2 babies. Okay? So those are the type of conditions that these caseworkers have to deal with. This is kind of a bad one, but not out of the ordinary. Now I got another case here, which is also not out of the ordinary. This is a case where the caseworkers are trying to deliver services to these people. Again, trying to help them so that we don't have to remove the children. Okay? In this case, the guy, the dad, is threatening the caseworker all the time. I'll give you an effing reason to call to need the police. I'll go to jail. I'm not afraid. That was January 8th, January 9th. You tell that caseworker I'm going to grab him by the throat. I don't care about going to jail. I'm going to call his senior and tell the senior he's doing Molly, which in fact a report was called in, and the caseworker had to undergo an investigation to see if he was in fact doing Molly. At the same time this is going on, the caseworker has to make arrangements for visitation. So on January 11, made arrangements for the guy to get to court. $118 for a taxi. Okay? Had to make arrangements for taxi so they could get visitation. I'm just giving you a couple of small examples because the caseworkers don't have guns. They don't have weapons. They need to, sometimes they need to call the police to get them to accompany them to these places. But they're under an obligation to continue to work with these people. Even after they're in court, and I enter an order directing the department to provide them with services. They're getting services because they're drug addicted, mentally ill. A lot of them are living in filth and squalor, and our caseworkers have an obligation to go into those conditions, to continue to work with those people to try to help them. They do not have the option, like probation officers, to say, hey, this case isn't working, judge, send them to jail. We have to continue to provide services because of our obligation to the children. Okay, so what I'm trying to convey to you is the stress that these workers have is significantly higher than what the probation workers are, and they're getting paid $1 less in starting salary. I would ask you really to consider the fairness of that. I don't think it's fair. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I didn't myself, as I said, I didn't appreciate the difference. I did not appreciate, even though I worked up there for more than 30 years, what they put up with and what they do. So they really. So that's it.
Do you want to talk about the last 2 pages that you?
Oh, yeah, on my schedule there. That's my schedule.
Yeah, knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, I just wanted you to see the figures for the different family court judges throughout the district. That's in the 6 counties in the 5th Judicial District. Highlighted in the orange are the number of neglect and abuse cases that are being handled by the particular judge. And I just want you to appreciate that mine are like more than double than anybody else's. I mean, and I'm happy to do it, but that's another indication to you of just where we're at as a county in this neglect and abuse situation.
Does anybody else have any questions for Judge Eden? Thank you, I only hear great things about what you're doing in the court, and I appreciate your time to come out and talk with us.
Well, thanks. And let me invite you, anybody that wants to sit in on court and watch what we're doing, please, give me a call. And we'd be glad to let you know when might be a good time for you to come in and observe firsthand what we're doing there. We don't get many visitors, and of course, this is the kind of stuff that, let's face it, nobody really wants to hear about. I mean, none of my friends or family, they're not particularly interested in it. So nobody wants to talk about this stuff.
I'm not talking about it on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Thanks,
folks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Brian, thanks for your patience.
I'm gonna enlighten the room up a little bit right now. Alright, so I have some things to pass around. On a positive note, some of you are aware of the Imagination Library that Literacy Volunteers is really with United Way has taken a great lead role to get this going. This is most of the brainchild that we've talked about for years, and then with them getting AEI funding, and actually YouthGov supplied some funding to get them off the ground when Legislator Wilbur and I met him about 2 years ago. What I'm sending you around is the most updated brochure that has been out to be distributed. You're going to see that school districts that are listed on here are actually the districts where kids can apply. So what this is, if you don't know, is if you sign up a simple application, which is right in the brochure. You can do it online now as well too. You can sign up, and if you are in the required areas that qualify, you automatically get a book sent to your house every month from age 0 up till age 5. These are the books that you get to keep. They're books that have all been identified as they go through the process as the child gets older, that the reading level changes to one there, and the last book they get is a graduation book where they are off to kindergarten. Obviously, preaching to you as a choir that the statistics of where we can get books in the hands of kids, statistics that can get 10 books in the hands of a child before their 5th birthday, the success rate of them graduating high school is substantially higher than somebody who does not have that in their possession. So this is a great thing, as you'll see on there, if you don't know yet. Fulton and I think it's APW are about to kick off right now as we're talking. The structure is based on the free lunch program is how we identified how we rolled it out. We rolled it out first in Hannibal and then Sandy Creek, and it's continuing to go on. Our goal is by the time the kids go back to school in the fall, all 9 districts will be on board. So this is a program where it's just another tool that we can use to work to educate our young kids, to give them opportunities that maybe they wouldn't be provided. We're working with different groups. We're continuously reaching out to find out who else we can add to help us get the books in the hands of our young people. We work with the superintendents in the schools and starting to work with pediatricians and hospitals. It all started by, if any of you have had a child in Oswego County, they'll distribute this to you in a packet as soon as you get there. The problem is the little small print on the bottom says must live in Onondaga County. So that eliminated anybody that lived in Oswego County. So that's where we're headed with that. So just going to give you a quick update on that. On March 21st, we are working as a collaboration group that we put together. Started out with the district attorney, Greg Oakes, and myself and Christy from the Sheriff's Department had met to talk a little bit about the bullying in schools and what can we do and what's out there and what's not out there. And surprisingly, across the state, there is not a lot in the schools about bullying, aside from your big group sessions, which is really not what a lot of the schools are looking for, because a lot of the big auditorium presentations are not as effective, proven just based upon the fact that the more one-to-one direction with the students has been more beneficial. So in March, on March 21st, we're going to be at City BOCES. We're going to have a school safety summit. We're working with a group, Stu Hamel is working with us on this as well, that we are collaborating with, actually the county attorney's office with Dell, that we are going to be, working to work with 50 to 60 students to talk about things that are happening in the schools. They'll be putting a survey out there together that they'll be able to fill out. They won't put their names or anything on it, so we'll be able to get information hopefully that they may not want to share in the group setting. Youth Justice Resolution will be facilitating the event, so that will be there. But one of the reasons why I'm sharing it with you guys is we're looking to have a good broad spectrum of young people participate. We don't want just the kids at City. We just don't want the top of the line kids. We just don't want the kids from our youth court. We want kids from all areas. So if you know of any youth, preferably in high school age, that would like to participate in this, City will feed them that day. They'll participate in the event, and there will be a follow-up process to go along with that. And if anybody else wants to attend the event, it will take place at noon on March 21st at City. City BOCES, if you just sign in, they'll get you to where you need to be. So I wanted to share that with you. I wanted to share with you quickly that if, again, because I know that you are approached from time to time for employment opportunities, that currently, I have my notes because I left it here at home, that with Camp Hollis, again, I have some flyers to send around on some information that we have there. Is at the last meeting, I think it was, I introduced you to Zach Lewis, the new coordinator of Parks and Rec Development. He has definitely hit the ground running. One of the new changes that we're doing this year is we've extended the hours to our day camp. So our day camp program used to run from 9 to 4. And what we've done is we've extended it this year to have an early drop off from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then a late dismissal from 4 to 6 p.m. And if you're going to do the additional hours, we're going to charge an additional small fee to go along with that. But this will ensure that, if you have working parents that are using the day camp as daycare, they'll be able to drop off before work happens, or pick up when work gets out. And the biggest part that you can feel good about is a child dropped off or early drop off will get breakfast, they all get lunch, and if they have late pickup, they'll get dinner. So we will technically feed them. It's staffed, our day camp is staffed through AmeriCorps, so the overall overhead to the day camp program is really minimal. As I've sat down to maybe in my budget talks with Bill or whatever, to make a long story short, a good week at day camp, one good week at day camp pays for my whole summer of day camp cost and expenses. So it's a 6-week program, so the rest of it works to go along with that. That being said, a couple things. We start, like I said, you should have seen there, we started to hire our staff. We are at 55% complete with staffing hiring right now. A couple things you might want to note: a few years ago, you guys honored Keegan McSweeney as the Paul Santor Award. He will be a co-director this year, so he's moved up to the highest level of a staff person to be at camp, so that feedback for that. And proud to announce that Lois Camilla, for anybody that knows Camp Hollis, will be entering her 38th year of working at Camp Hollis this summer. So she will be running our kitchen, which is always a good thing to know when Lois is there, because she's obviously very familiar with the camp. So our biggest downfall continues to be to find that WSI instructor. If anybody wants to be it, you just have to be at least 18 years of age or older to teach swimming lessons, which is an hour of your time once a week to make sure a kid can go in the deep end. Qualifications that as we spread the word out there, if you ever talk to anybody, lifeguards and WSIs are extreme shortage in Oswego County. And it's a job you can have throughout your whole life. So we're looking to do that, but if you'll notice on our social media pages, we've started to spotlight our new staff. So we're posting pictures of our new staff, a little bit of information. They filled out a little bio information just so it's faces that parents can connect as they're going through. We've released our weeks. Our first week is obviously our 8-year-old week, so that's for the youngest of campers. And then just to give you a heads up, week 1, we have Invention Convention. Then we have Super Splash Week, Time Traveler, Hollis Has Talent, Wilderness Survival. Troy will get you there for that one. And then the last week is for the older kids to participate in.
Hey,
so
what about the talent thing?
you can do that one. I'm sure you read off the, you don't want to do Super Splash Week. Anyways, again, like I said, that Zach is really, coming here from the Buffalo Y area and being a former camper and working there. Interestingly enough, it's really odd, and I think I shared it with you before, but some of the staff he's making up are staff that were Camp Hollis staff 10 or 15 years ago. we're not putting back for grown-up positions, that now maybe they're gonna be the clerk, or now they're gonna be something that they were a counselor back then. So we're getting a great turnout from our staff to that, and we're really starting to pick up on our application piece, because traditionally, it's, I've been working, I know I saw the ad, or the article in the paper, we're working with both Jim and Brandon, the past directors, that most people sign up for camp right after spring break, because right now they're not thinking a lot about camp outside, but we are steadily starting to see things fill up with camp, which is good. On the overnight piece, and then the day camp, again, because we can use that with coverage for people who are employed, that just seems to be picking up as well. AmeriCorps, again, just going off from that, we're going to have 23 summer sites this summer. We'll hire about 49 people, members to participate in the program, again, focusing on nutrition and going forth on whether it's nutrition or fitness. Will be all over within a lot of the community recreation programs that and the camps and libraries. A lot of the AmeriCorps members and the people in there staffing them in the summertime to keep our young people busy and occupied with the out of school time. As we all talk about budget season, with the state budget, we're still waiting to hear where we stand with add-on. If we get add-on money that we've gotten for the last 6 years, but I know the budget's tight this year. When we do our mini grant program, we've already put the applications out there. And interestingly enough, really, really interesting things that you guys have funded in the past that are taking hits among the state who are already reaching out to us. Things like healthy highways, which are potentially taking hits. We can offset that if that's in there, and we're already working with them to how can we do that, at this point in time. So a lot of good things are happening right now, and I know we've all been meeting a long time, so I'm not gonna go really much beyond that unless you guys have questions, but March 21st, if anybody wants to go and hear about what's happening in our schools, I suggested, as I've told many people, in a lot of these meetings we go through, when I take off my youth bureau hat and put my school board hat on, it's amazing because the first thing, as you guys all know, because I'm sure you guys never get complaints from people, is the first kind of complaints I get is, why did you let that happen? Why did you let this happen? And probably the way I feel, the way you feel, if you don't know about it, it's really difficult to, if all of a sudden we have a program that's looking to get into a school, in this case Oswego, by the time it gets to the school board, it's already somewhat been decided on internally. And whether it's right or wrong, it's still a piece that we have to deal with. So as school boards are building their budgets right now, I highly suggest, any kind of programming to get that out and invite your school board presidents to whatever meetings you want, because let them at least have that information so they can share that, whether it's SROs or just programming that you have. In Oswego's case, for example, if we have an $85.7 million budget, we got that memorized. To bring an SRO in at $30,000, to me, it's like, what's that, a pencil? I mean, it's hard to stomach to think what the offset of the difference could be. So, but now is the time to do that as we're reaching for these schools, because the budgets are not built yet, but they will be soon. So that's my quick update.
You have your promotions for hires on social media too?
Yes, we do, and anybody can share them, please do so, but the Camp House page, and you can, okay. Oh, and lastly, I guess I should have said cut off that we did get a phone call today for those of you who've been around for a while, Billy, look like this, that the work to happen at Serby has finally awakened, and they're to be contacting Onondaga County Purchasing today. The question they gave me is, how quick do you think they can turn it around? I said, they said they can turn it around pretty quick, so actually gonna meet with Christy after the meeting. So new septic as well, they said should be in by the end of June at Serby. So that's a lot of work that you guys have supported in the past to bring the infrastructure at Serby up to go along with the lodge and things that have been working on. And then our next vision after that, as you guys know, it's a large piece of property, is to take those trails and be able to, Oswego County, be able to host things like those fat bike races and things that that are popular right now, that we could certainly do on our property and still not be bringing in motorized motorcycles or skidoos or anything to that matter that could damage it. We're looking at all non-motorized. So we have a vision to continue to grow it and to work with it. So we're going along.
Brian, two quickies for you. On the 21st, what is the time for that event?
It starts at noon, so, and we're telling people to be there about 11:30. to get in there, to get organized. We're gonna feed them lunch at noon and it ends at 2. It's pretty much a school day.
And the second one for you is, are you aware of the, what's going on at Max?
I am, and I put that out to my staff, and I believe Zach and Jennifer are going to that day for, they've already reached out to his Melissa, I think it is.
I'm not certain.
Well,
I'll find out.
Yeah, they reached out to her, so we're on board, we're gonna be there. There's Fulton's got an event that day too, so we're spreading ourselves, but we'll have somebody there.
Okay, so just briefly for the benefit of the rest of the committee, at Mexico High School on Saturday the 23rd of this month, there'll be what's called a Community Connections event, and where it's just to present things like the Youth Bureau, whatever other types of entities are out there in the community for people to use that are not necessarily school related. So I'll find out more about it tomorrow.
Yeah, we're gonna push the camp over.
Very good, thank you.
All set? For the appropriate motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.